Welcome to Mystery of the Soul. I'm your co-host Erin, and I'm joined by my friend Leo, a psychic medium and Reiki master. Our podcast explores the depth of the soul, the spiritual, and the supernatural.
Hi guys, welcome back to Mystery of the Soul. This is Leo with you. I have a guest today with us. She's an astrologer, tarot reader, and folk artist. Her name's Christine West. She lives in Massachusetts. She's a friend of mine. And I'm going to turn it over to Christine just to say hi.
Hello, I'm Christine, aka wickedfolked. Nice to be here, Leo. Thank you.
Thanks for being on here. So since you brought up the name wickedfolked, what does that mean, or where did that come from?
So it's funny, right? It's a little fun, right?
And
so
just let me interject real quick. I forgot to do this in the very beginning, but there's going to be probably some strong, mature language used today. So for our young listeners, maybe might want to tune out. So back to you, Christine.
Thank you. Yeah, New England is as New England does. I am a mass hole. You can take the girl out of mass, but you can't take the mass out of the girl. I do live in Connecticut now, technically. I jumped the line.
Okay.
But,
all right.
Wicked has always been and will always be a part of my vocabulary, and it functions similar to another favorite word of mine, fuck, which they both have that depending on where it's used in the sentence, your intention, your inflection. It's an amplifier. And so wicked, because it's a little spicy, wicked ways. And also it's like awesome, it means kind of many versions of things, but also put with folked, it sounds like wicked fucked, and that's just definitely a statement that comes out of my mouth. But mostly the folk speaks to folk art, folk magic, and folked to me is kind of unserious. It's messy and kind of raw.
Okay. So I don't know if you remember when you came up with the name or not, but was there anything particular going on in your life?
I was just kind of starting out with like, how am I gonna share my, tarot and astrology and folk art stuff, and what like a name that encompasses all of that. And I landed on wickedfolked. I was just kind of scratching names down, and I liked that because it just felt from the heart and undefined, and folk music, folk art, all that stuff. There's a freedom to it. And so I was like, I am wicked folked, wicked fucked, wicked free.
Can you explain a little bit what your interpretation of like what folk art means to you?
Sure. So I think folk art, folk music, folk magic, it's like for the people, by the people. It's kind of undefined. There's no rules. It's really outside the box. And so to me, it speaks to that sort of like haphazard zeal. It's for everybody, and there's no real record. You kind of make it your own. You put your own stank on it, as I like to say. And so
it's just very organic.
Yeah. And it's, it's rudimentary even. So you work in with what you got, it's kind of a recipe you don't really follow, it's a fuck it recipe.
Okay. All right. Now you consider yourself a folk artist, you said, right?
Right. So yeah, you probably won't see any of my art in like, fine art establishments in a museum, and it's just kind of for fun, and basic. And I work with a lot of natural resources, wood burning and rocks and sticks,
So is that the type of art that you like to do, working with like rocks and sticks, natural things?
Yeah, sea glass, kind of things from nature, dried leaves, kind of all that natural stuff that will just kind of decay back into the land one day. I kind of like the idea that anything that I make along with like me will return to the earth, at some point.
Biodegradable.
It's biodegradable. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome.
And so for
Okay.
me, that's the folk art is just kind of simple and free, and it's not serious, it's not stuffy.
Yeah. Do you find that you is there any certain point that you go to your art for any particular reason? Like, is it a coping strategy for you? Is it something that's like a de-stressor for you? Or how do you use it?
Oh yeah, no, I love that. Thanks for asking. So it's definitely a good outlet, keep the hands busy. Again, being natural materials, there's a lot of fun in kind of sourcing that. I'm always, I love to be outside. And so bringing some of that inside is always fun for me. But I like to work with my hands, and also just always been kind of a doodle bug. All of my notes have, little scribbles and doodles on them. And so I think it's just kind of a moving of energy. And also I love little talismans and tokens like that. So to share a bit of that out into the world is fun for me. It's a way to kind of birth an idea forward.
Now, you brought up the word talisman. Can you just explain what that is for people that don't know?
Oh, sure. So there's, talismans and amulets, and I forget which way it goes, but one is for kind of amplifying energy out into the world, and another for protection. I think talismans are for protection and amulets are for
okay,
kind of energy out, but they're just little tokens.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's good. Okay. And do you put particular intentions into those things, basically?
Yes, indeed. So I'll do a lot with wood and crystals. I make little zodiac discs of a constellation, and I'll use certain crystal chips to inlay into the disc and kind of form that constellation. Or even birth charts. I'll take somebody's birth chart and kind of recreate that on a wood disc with inlaid crystals. And so it's a different expression of that form.
Very cool. Now, you brought up constellations, and I know you're an astrologist. How did you get interested in that?
So a lot, really metaphysical, new age, however you want to call that, spirituality, religion. I've always been interested. I grew up Catholic in Worcester, and so a lot of the metaphysical stuff was really generally discouraged, but I was always drawn towards the occult and astrology. I would buy the, read your horoscope in the newspaper and buy the little scrolls they would have at honey farms, and just generally interested. There's no one moment that necessarily brought me to that, but I've just always returned to it. So always following that interest and buying books and cards, and astrology wise kind of kept returning back to these interests and building off of them. And I mean, it's a great time to be interested in, spirituality, metaphysical stuff. There's a lot of great resources. And so I was just listening to a lot of podcasts in my secretary life, banging on the keyboard and listening to information, and then finding books and kind of just going off of that, and then investing in some, classes and really learning, saying, I'm going to dedicate to understanding this better, because it's a foreign language. It really takes time to learn.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Now you mentioned interest in the occult that you've had. What falls into the category of the occult? Because a lot of people have heard that word, but might not know what falls into that category.
Sure. So I know it's a scary word, very taboo. So occult is hidden, and basically all form of mystery schools and esoterics, religions, they kind of all fall under a cult. And I'm into, or interested, I guess I should say, in philosophy. I don't really follow any one path, but I just really have always enjoyed learning and finding out different knowledge, what's out there. This group has thought what, and myths, legends, and esotericism.
Okay. to go back to the astrology for a second, who are the types of people that you might do astrology readings for that you see for like the clientele that you've worked with?
Great. So it's really a lot of different people with tarot and
Okay.
astrology. I'm very
Right.
fortunate in
Okay.
that this connects me to not really any one, say, type of client.
Right.
Most folks that are looking into astrology, it's really a discovery of the self, kind of peeling back
Hmm.
the layers and looking into that. I guess I would call it like your base operating system, what you came in
Yep.
with. And so it's a fun tool to use, I think, for self-discovery. It can be empowering in that way. And there's not really any one particular, type of client that seeks me out for that, but
Hmm.
most of my
Hmm.
business is word of mouth. So somebody that has worked with me knows me and has, passed me along.
Yeah.
And I love
Do
it.
people, do clients usually see you more than once?
Yeah, a lot of my business is repeat business, and so we love that. Feel very
Hmm.
loved, and
Hmm.
so astrologically, you've got your natal chart, what you come in with. That's kind of a screenshot of the cosmos on the day you were born, the moment you were born. Time is very important in astrology, and
Yeah,
so
exactly.
somebody that maybe I've looked at their natal chart and have put together a reading and interpretation of their sort of natal characteristics. Um, they'll maybe reach out to, what's going on this year, the energies that are kind of pressing on that chart. So you look at the transits, the sort of current sky compared to your birth sky, and you
Yeah.
can
Okay.
delineate some, information from that, the energies that might be pressing on you and in what areas of life.
Um, so like years ago when a lot of people used to read the newspaper or even online now too, when people are, let's say, looking up their horoscopes, right? I'm a Cancer. So what are the types of things that usually are common that show up in the horoscope readings that people are reading about online or like in a newspaper?
Right, right. So I guess one of the biggest takeaways that I would say with that is it's hard to cast a blanket statement. So, like, Cancer energy operates in a way, and your sun
Yeah.
sign is Cancer. So, sort of the core essence of Cancers may all have this through line of sensitivity, emotional, not always maturity, but on
Yeah.
the high side maturity, on the low side moodiness, right? And like
Okay. Yeah.
there are some
Emotions. Yeah.
qualities that translate across Cancer, but that's like saying, everybody in North America feels this way. It's hard to kind of cast that because you have many other pieces of your chart that are fitting in. Your Cancer sun might be close to a Cancer moon if you were born near that new moon time, and then your emotions, that emotional charge will be extra heightened. But not all Cancers might feel that way. Some people might have just their sun is in Cancer and everything else is like in other parts of their chart. And so it's not speaking to them. And also, like I had mentioned, time is very important. So depending
Hmm.
on the time of day you were born, that can shift a chat. Some people will look at the horoscopes in the newspaper and they generally start trying to watch my Worcester. They
Yeah.
start and
That's
end
okay.
the 20th to the 20th. So you know June 20th to July 20th, Cancer season, and you might be born on the 21st, and depending on the time of day, the sun might have still been in Cancer, but you might have gone your life thinking that you're a Leo.
Oh,
And so
okay. Yeah.
it can be
Yep.
kind of radical for people to put their brains around, but it's revelatory for a lot of folks to go, oh gosh, I never plugged in
Right.
my
Right.
birth time, realized that I was kind of had this belief, this conditioning around myself being a certain sign. But the
Yeah.
zodiac is
Okay.
12, and we have all 12 energies, kind of operating within us and on us at all times. So, we evolve.
Okay.
Everything's kind of in that dynamic evolution.
Great. All right, thanks for explaining that. So with astrology, you're obviously paying attention to the stars, the constellations, the planets. Do you follow like the moon cycles?
Oh yeah, yes. So I actually send out I call it my moon letter for the new moons and full moons through Substack currently. I release a little, here's the energy and flavor of this full moon, this new moon. And
Okay.
so I'm pretty aware of that generally. And as a female, cycle wise, if my menstruators out there, it's kind of like a unlocking of your cycle for
Okay.
the sign
All
the moon
right.
is in, the phase it's in. It really it aligns. So rah womanhood.
um, do you do any particular rituals with either like the new moon or the full moon or both?
I do, and every moon phase, it's not always an elaborate ceremony or ritual, but I have an awareness, and most days it's like, lighting a candle, burning some incense, kind of. I journal.
Mhm.
I do consistently journal. That's one thing that has always served me well. I suggest it to a lot of people. It's a good way to work out your thoughts. But with the moon, I track it. And so intentions at the new moon, releasing at the full moon. And I generally wrap it around that theme of the sign. Whatever energies are at play there, I'll kind of weave that into my ritual, my workings, or at least just what I'm kind of working through in my own personal journal.
So you mentioned workings. Like, what's the difference between a ritual and a working? What does that
Oh,
mean?
I just kind of interchangeably, like whatever you're taking time
Okay.
to focus on, whether it's a full-blown ritual or just I'm gonna take time to take some breaths, meditate, and journal. Technically, to me, that's
Oh, okay.
working. You're dedicating time and focus to a sort of a project.
Got it. Okay. All right. Okay. Um, is there anything about astrology that I didn't ask you about that you think would be interesting for us to know?
Oh, I mean, it is such a vast and deep topic, so there's so much to
Yeah.
look at there. But it's similar to tarot, or kind of really any of that metaphysical. It's a Pandora's box. You
Okay.
get in, there's a rabbit hole. I personally always tell people it's huge to just like know your big three. When you get comfortable, your big three is your sun sign, your moon sign, your ascendant sign or
Okay.
rising. That's
Okay.
essentially what was on the horizon. That's that time of birth being so important. And
Okay.
kind of understanding those energies is a huge kind of walk through the door. That's a like a threshold understanding. And then you can move on and look at really the rest of your kind of chart dynamics. I would say that's a good place to start.
Good start. Okay. All right. Um, now, I know you do tarot readings as well. Is there like the majority of your clientele that you work with? Do you do more astrology? Do you do more tarot? Or would you say it's kind of like balanced?
I right now I'd say I probably have done more tarot this year, and
Hmm.
it's just easier to do like in a market setting. So when I set up
Yeah.
at events and markets, astrology, there's a lot to it. So if you presented me with a chart I've never seen before, I'm going to take like 15 to 20 minutes just to kind of wrap my thoughts around delineations. Where's this? Where's that? Energies of this and that. And that rabbit hole can go on for, hours, days, years, it's there's so
Okay.
much to look at in one chart. Whereas a tarot reading, it's me, it's the cards, it's the client. We shuffle, we do a spread, we talk about it. It can go very, very quickly. And so that's generally a lot of my business this year and at markets and events has been tarot. And I love, there's so many different people that find me at these events, and I've met
Hmm.
so many people. It's really interesting where our work takes us and the venues. Like I've popped up at some, fun places. I'm doing nail salon in Millbury on Sunday.
Awesome. Okay. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. So with the tarot readings, like for somebody who has never gotten a tarot reading, and maybe even just maybe existing clients that may not know, but like what would be like the type of things that you can either talk about maybe myths with tarot readings, but what would be the things for people not to expect out of a tarot reading?
Gotcha. So again, many different readers, different styles, different abilities,
Okay.
I don't really make a lot of promises. I tell people generally, like, I'm not going to tell you anything you don't really already know. There's
Mhm.
some discussion around potential future, and I always am kind of sure to hammer home that, like, it's not written, the future is not in stone. This is the most
Not set in
likely
stone.
right trajectory based on like what you're currently doing, but you have choice. This can be changed and adjusted, so not going to tell you anything you don't already know. I'm not going to tell you when you're going to die or like any of that stuff. A lot
Well,
of people
that's good to know. Okay.
yeah, that are kind of frightened because I had been issued that same kind of fear from my Catholic upbringing, like, oh, the tarot, it's the devil, and you're going to invite in, I don't know, demons to your life, I guess. But like, I've yet to meet any demons through my tarot deck, or
Okay, that's
doing
good.
people.
Yep.
And I always say it's kind of like opening a window to your subconscious. So you say, okay, I'm
Okay.
open to receiving another perspective, a different angle, some insights that maybe I hadn't considered yet that come up through this
Hmm.
card message. And their cards, they kind of fit together like a puzzle. I read this message to you. You go off in your life. This is the most important part to me, is what you do alone, sort of the information bubbling up from your subconscious. Because by having that reading, you're like, I'm listening, I'm tuning into yourself, your subconscious. And so what comes up in, say, those days, weeks, are the real true insights. And I always tell people, your intuition is more important than my intuition. I'm, reading the message, but it's unlocking something in you, and that's the more important message. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
It does. Yeah, it does. So, based on you doing tarot readings for quite a while, what would you say would be like a few of the tarot cards that are maybe misunderstood?
Oh, many, right? So
Yeah,
the
right.
majors, of course, come to mind: death, the devil, the
Okay.
tower. Um, I had spoken to a reader once at an event that had, and I didn't know this was a thing because I've never done a lot of like psychic fairs, the events that I pop up at like farmers markets, right? So
Hmm.
she was explaining to me that at some, I guess, psychic fairs, they'll ask readers to remove those cards from the deck. So there's like no
Oh,
rocky readings. And I was like, that's
okay.
so wrong to me. I think it's wrong. I'm like, I don't know. It's like handicapping the message, I guess. But
Yeah.
those cards in particular, I'd say, are the hardest for people to see come up in a reading because there's so much fear around death, the devil, and the
Yeah.
tower is I don't have my deck near me, but it's,
That's
there's
okay.
a lightning bolt kind of shattering a tower and there's people falling out of it. It's a very ghastly sight, and it
Okay.
is a catastrophic change. And I say catastrophic because a lightning bolt hitting your house, it's like a tornado. It's pretty
Pretty
catastrophic.
extreme. Yeah. Hmm.
Right? So it's meant to be, shakes you down to the foundation for a rebuild, similar to death comes in, and it's indicative of a deep transformation, death, rebirth. That is a transformation, and that's a painful process, but it has to happen for the growth, for the evolution. Sometimes, like a snake sheds its skin. The death card is
Hmm.
associated with Scorpio, in that transformation is hard and painful, but the only way out is through. You got to go through it to kind of continue your path. So it's not all bad messages. And the devil, he's scary to a lot of people, but I always say we're our own devils. He's just the boogeyman, right? And on the card, there's people kind of bound and chained. And I always say, we kind of capture ourselves in our own hell. Like the devil's not going to chase you. You can leave that prison anytime you really want to around the mindset. He's the illusion that this material world is it. There's nothing else to kind of tune into. And so it's kind of an illusion, but he can also be like an invitation for a good time. If you've been too buttoned up, playing it too tight, the devil can be like, all right, let's let your hair down and have some fun. So I think he's a good time.
Okay. All right. So I want to just go just a little bit deeper with those 3 cards for a second. And I just want to ask you, like, if you think about some of the readings you've done and the death card has come up, for example, what are some real life examples that you've seen where that death card might come up for somebody?
Okay. So it's hard to think of. I think a lot of times in that mind space or that connection to a reading, a lot of times I'm channeling, and so the information is kind of gone. Like
you don't always remember it. Right. Okay.
I don't remember a lot of people's readings. I can speak to my own. I do read for myself
Yeah,
often.
sure. Okay. Yep.
So the death card, the tower card, the devil, these cards have come up for me in my own readings, and I can definitely attest to the transformation. But it's not always, the tower isn't always like your house is going to burn down. Sometimes
not literal,
house,
right.
It's metaphoric for, your relationship to yourself or your job, and that for me was one. Definitely, I would say that was a death rebirth. I'm still kind of in that chrysalis state of goopiness.
So like transitioning from one career to another kind of thing, possibly. Okay.
Right. And just life changes, deep life changes that don't always make sense. So like death, for instance, in our lives, when we lose somebody, the greatest pain and heart, it doesn't make sense. It's surreal. This person was here and gone and inaccessible. And sort of that's how it is. We're always kind of living through many deaths of ourselves, versions that we can't bring into our future. But we had to go through that phase, that state. I was using a job, for example, worked as a secretary. I always say I practice the secretarial arts. And that's a very logical, socially acceptable position, and going in a kind of a completely other direction. But something that really feeds my soul is reading tarot for other people.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That was a big change, a death of kind of my career. But that compost feeds my soul's path, forward. And so, I mean, I'm an evolving dynamic human also, so I'm still figuring it all out as I go along, but so far, so good.
Yeah, we're always learning and changing. So let me ask, like, your overall spirituality and your lifestyle, like, how has your spirituality and your interest in like the tarot, astrology, your folk art and all that, how has that helped you get through certain maybe life experiences that you've had?
Sure. So definitely, again, that folkness is part of that practice for me. It's undefined, it shifts, it changes. It's very gritty, what am I working with? What do I got to work with? And kind of using what I have on hand. And so those spiritual practices kind of shift over some years. I'm very dedicated to meditating every day and having like a physical, yoga practice or something that's routine. And, life sometimes you roll with the punches, right? So the routineness is sort of fallen away from me a bit. And I just kind of lean more on what I would call like the sort of fast, no rituals, when I'm stirring
Yeah.
my coffee, giving thanks, and just kind of always
Hmm.
finding a way to, when I wake up and open my eyes, gratitude, thank you, little quick prayers, and always lighting candles, burning stuff, but it not, with like a robe, very not ceremonially, I guess, mini
Yeah.
ceremony.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but knowing that I have that toolkit with me, and grounding and breath work has been huge for me. Just knowing that I don't need to maybe react or respond in a moment. It's okay to take a step back and put space between, me and a reaction. And
Mhm.
tuning into the breath has been huge. And that was something that I learned in yoga, and, you learn it in meditation, and you learn it in many different phases, but applying it like in the moments, I'd say that's the faith, right? Knowing that you have it in your toolkit and
Yeah.
actually.
Right. Right. So for somebody who has had a spiritual practice, whatever that looks like, because everybody's is different, but
Mhm.
do you have any advice for people that, let's say, they were doing really well, fitting in their spiritual practice, whether it's like their rituals, habits, whatever it is, and then life just gets really busy and it feels like they are falling away from those practices and they may feel guilty about it, and life gets really busy and they're not trying, or they're trying to figure out, like, how can I work something in so I still feel like I am doing some sort of practice? Do you have any advice for that type of person?
Oh, for sure, for sure. And I always come back to, everything is temporary. Wherever we are existing currently is temporary. The good times, the bad times, it's all temporary. And so if you're feeling kind of maxed out in life and don't have but a moment to spare, it's okay to, meditate in the commute on your car ride. I always kind of come back
Just
to
not while
those
you're
basics.
driving.
Yeah, no, driving, but like it doesn't have to be, closing your eyes and intense breath work, just being very present
Okay.
in that one
Being
moment, and
present.
that's
Okay.
it,
Gotcha. Okay.
and or having your mantras, or, some people, whatever you're into, affirmations, mantras,
Yeah.
just kind of putting yourself in that connection, remembering, I'm taking time to remember that I'm divinely connected no matter what I'm doing, divinely connected,
True.
protected, and guided, and just kind of
Yeah.
remembering that, because even when we forget, it's in there somewhere, but we,
Yeah. We
bringing it
just
back to
kind
the
of need to
conscious.
remind ourselves, basically.
Right, right.
Right.
And then any little action, you're going to eat, you're going to take a sip of water, oh, I'm so grateful that I have this beverage, this clean water to drink, this nourishing food, and just kind of, blessing up every moment that you can. And it doesn't have to be a grand, dance and drum session. It can just be, oh, I'm so thankful that I have this nourishment, and I have to just, that's it. And then on with your day.
Yeah. Do you have any favorite rituals that you have been practicing for a while that have really been able to maybe stand the test of time through life, that you've been able to carry it through, whether it looked like it was bigger or smaller, but you're still been able to fit it in? Do you have something like that?
Yeah, I would say I absolutely always take time out of my day to gawk at nature, and just kind of be
Okay.
amazed at the sunrise, the sunset, the moon, the stars. Oh, a beautiful
Hmm.
cloud, oh, the flowers are up, the flowers are dying, like just
Yeah.
wherever I'm at in those sort of seasons, kind of recognizing that. And I find that to be a very grounding force. Prayer is, to me, it's again just bringing that connection to divine up to my
Hmm.
consciousness, and
Hmm.
having a moment, a little conversation, calling in my guides, my guardians, and anything of that. So that's gratuity. Gratefulness is part of like my
Yeah.
daily
Yeah.
tips to heaven, right? Like it is part of
Right.
my
Yeah.
my daily practice. And like I said, some years that can be very ornate, embellished, and other years, months, days, it's just I'm mixing my coffee, yelling thank you, and burning some shit in my house, and like on with my day.
Yep.
I like to burn cinnamon. I like to burn bay leaves. I like to burn any kind of incense. I also mix, herbs and stuff. I'm usually burning herbs.
Oh, okay. Any of
That's
those
what it
particular
meant.
herbs you mentioned, are they good for any particular reason?
Yes. So cinnamon's protection, psychic enhancement, and roses also. Roses and cinnamon, perfect. I like that blend together,
Oh.
and that also is protection, heart opening. Bay leaves are very good, I believe, for protection, and people will usually write intentions or things that they're burning away,
On
and
them.
write it up, yeah, and burn them up. A lot of people like the sage, and that's great too. I usually use garden sage instead of white sage. Cedar, big fan of cedar.
Oh, okay.
Yep, and
Great.
sweetgrass if you can find it, if you're lucky enough.
Smells so good.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are some of my faves, but usually cinnamon sticks is my go-to.
Great. Thank you. I know, like, kind of being on a spiritual path, sometimes, the people around you, like your family or friends, not everybody may be into the things you're into, but like where have you found like your community of like-minded people that like can relate to the things that you enjoy and all of that?
So, definitely at different points in my life, I've was maybe embarrassed and ashamed of, a belief in astrology even, and tarot, or, paranormal, metaphysical, any, whatever, name your thing.
Yep.
And, some people they're not into it, and that's fine. I don't let that kind of rock my boat anymore. Like, you're into what you're into, I'm into what I'm into. Most of my friends and family, I would say, they're very open and accepting. I'm very lucky to be supported in like my friends and family. And even if they're not into it, I'd say they're curious and open to it. Most people are pretty curious and open to things. A lot of times folks that you don't expect it have a ghost story. Yes. Yeah. That I would say is the most surprising, and it's pretty hard to surprise me. I'm pretty like generally accepting of anything that anyone has to say, but the kind of paranormal happenings that people have had, I'm surprised sometimes. And so they have it, but they're not willing to like go down that road, so to speak. You know what I mean? It can be work, and so I don't think it's for everybody. And I love that there are many different kinds in different ways. But in my life, I've been very fortunate to be loved and accepted. And especially as we get older, like I said, in my younger years, I've kind of been ashamed of or embarrassed of my beliefs and unsure of them, insecure about myself. And so I would abandon and like self-sabotage, but that's the beauty of getting older, is you really give less fucks, and you really just want
there you go.
True up your life for yourself. So you start kind of living for yourself. And I do find a lot of times we return to those things that we enjoyed as children and young people, because that was really like an innocent and authentic interest. And so that's something that comes up in a lot of readings, will be inner child work. And I usually frame it around, do things that you enjoyed. What were those things? Because there's a lot of healing in that.
Right.
I don't know if I went really off the road on that answer. I'm sorry if I didn't answer the question.
No, that's totally fine. It's great. I think there's going to be many people that can kind of relate to what you said, and maybe some of the things that you've been through earlier in your spiritual practice, and to now where you've had some experience, you've gained some confidence, and exactly, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And, again, evolving, growing. So, like, I still will get wicked embarrassed of, like, I'm like, oh, that person sees, like, being seen. But this is part of that work,
It is. It is. Yeah, it is. Um, Let me ask you. So you mentioned in your answer paranormal. Like, have you had any interesting paranormal experiences yourself?
All right. So, I know that I have. And I
Uh
think
huh.
that even in my open mind, like I've just put him down or will logic it away or be like, oh yeah, obviously it's all real and crazy and just like on with my day. So I know that I have had them.
Yeah.
Um, I couldn't drum up one to be like, oh, this thing occurred, but stuff moves there. A lot of prophetic dreams and like dead people visit me in my dreams, but I think that happens for a lot of people also.
Yeah.
um
They just may not talk about it.
oh yeah, right. And
Right.
definitely, but nothing that I could speak to. Like I know so many people that come to me with their sort of stories. I'm always like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so cool. Not like, a little jealous maybe. I'm like, oh, I wish I could have like a apparition appear to
Okay.
me, but also I'm like, I don't know that I would want that, and I feel like in me like it has, and I didn't like it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Yep.
So
Yep.
like that's
That's fair.
part of that abandonment is like we shut down some of those maybe psychic faculties, so
Yep.
um through that sort of working that psychic muscle, I some of those memories kind of come back up. But yeah, it's kind of scary work. It's flavors of scary, but you gotta push through it.
Right. It's kind of like spiritual growing pains.
Yes, exactly. No, it's so true.
Right. Exactly. Um, so before we finish our conversation, I know in talking with you that you were creating this new, I think you called it the Wicked subscription.
Yes.
Can
Wicked
you talk a
subscription.
little bit about that, what that is?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. So, I do a lot of remote readings for like friends, family, and most of the work that I've been doing for tarot and astrology is in person. And I love remote because I'm a hermit in a homebody, and I'm like, oh, we can all be in our own like comfy spaces. And also, I'm like, what do people sort of want or need? And so an offering that I'm kind of putting together through this Wicked subscription is kind of like having me in your pocket for the month, like monthly retainer, Christine. So
Okay.
there's different tiers of how deep you want to go with this information, but the basic
Hmm.
tier would be uh I'm calling it like a theme of the month reading. So essentially
Okay.
there's an element and an elemental focus. So like
Okay.
for that month, and then what you are kind of meant to be walking away from and moving towards within that realm for that month. And then the higher tiers include moon messages, so pulling a tarot card or an oracle card for the new moon and the full moon, and also
Hmm.
some astrology advice. So these would all be remote reports sent to you. Some tiers include an actual live remote tarot reading, half hour or hour, depending.
Okay.
And then
Yep.
when the astrology works. So like the moon, full and new in that month, and where it's lighting up your chart. So like your birth chart, we were talking before, like where the current cosmos is affecting your birth chart, your natal
Okay.
chart. And so when I was kind of putting it together, I'm like, what is the kind of hand holding that most people seem to
Are
be
looking
drawn to?
for.
Yeah. And I think
Hmm.
that was kind of it. And I'm also like, what would I think would be helpful? And I think that's kind of the most helpful monthly witch in your pocket that I can offer you.
Okay. There you go.
And I
Um,
have a
can
that
you? I was just going to say, for people, so for people that don't understand what you meant by elemental, can you just explain that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So anybody that's had a tarot card reading with me, generally I open my readings by splitting the deck into 4 piles. Each
Okay.
pile represents a suit and an element. And so
Okay.
in tarot, you've got this connection to the suits and the elements. So it's
Mm-hmm.
wands for fire,
Mm-hmm.
cups for water, swords for
Mm-hmm.
air, and pentacles
Mm-hmm.
for earth. And each of
Okay.
those elements kind of relate to a different area of life. Fire's
Okay.
passion, water's relationships, swords is kind of change and socializing communication, and pentacles
Mm-hmm.
is that resources and money generally, but
Okay.
a more robust unpacking of that.
Okay. Awesome. Is there anything else with your business that you want to take a minute and promote that we haven't talked about?
Sure. So my booking site is kind of going to be going under some construction in December, and I'm trying to link up my domain wickedfolked.com to that, and the subscription will be live and purchasable in December. I'm going to be releasing sort of the details around that to my Substack subscribers, and people can jump on that list real easy. My Instagram has a connection to the Substack to sign up for it, but also I'll be promoting it on the socials and everything also.
Okay.
So I'm on all of them now. I crossed over to the DAC side and I did a Facebook.
Okay.
And I have
all right.
talk. I'm most active on Instagram, and like I said, that's kind of the easiest place to find all my information. My booking site and my Substack is linked there. I think I'm gonna be trying to streamline and kind of do everything through my Square site, newsletters and subscription and all that jazz.
Okay, great. And we'll include links in the show notes for all of that stuff and how people can reach you. Before we go, one of the segments towards the end of our episodes that we were doing for a while, but we haven't done it in a while, but just the last part of the episode, we ask something. What would you say? You can think about this, but for the people listening, what is something you would suggest that people could do to feed their soul?
So so many things, but right off the instinct is to trust your instincts and intuition. What is the thing that you feel drawn to? The desires don't come from, nowhere. Embrace your desires and take steps towards them. Maybe you always wanted to be a baseball pitcher. Okay. And if the glory days have passed you by, you can still join a softball league, and maybe you don't get to be a pitcher, but maybe you get to warm up, throw a ball, it doesn't have to be organized, but kind of do those things that speak to your soul in any capacity, large or small. It doesn't have to be grand gestures. That can be very small moments.
That's good advice. Yeah, no, I like that. I like that because it takes a little pressure off of people thinking they need to go big.
Yeah, no. Go small. I tell everyone, I'm low at the bar. Make it accessible for yourself and then go from there. You know what I mean? If you're oh, that's too easy, then go up. But you don't jump into the deep end if you don't know how to swim. So you got to start small.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for that. This has been a fun conversation.
Yes.
I want to thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please share the episode, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Mystery of the Soul. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you have a question, topic suggestion, or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. You can visit our website at mysteryofthesoul.com, reach us on Instagram or email us at mysteryofthesoulpodcast@gmail.com. If you're interested in booking a session with Leo, you can contact us at Mystery of the Soul or visit Leo's website directly at leomediummccarthy.net.